8 months in the life of a writer like Rachel Lynch, that's usually 2 or 3 books. But for the last 8 months, the story wasn't being written on a laptop. It was being written in hospital wards and chemo chairs. G'day everyone, and welcome to a very different and very special episode of the Killer Storyteller Podcast with Rachel Lynch. I'm Kristy Horne, coming to you from Melbourne, and I'm joined by the woman who has officially kicked a dirty stinking curveball right out of the park. Welcome to the mic, million copy, best-selling author Rachel Lynch. Hiya, Rach. Firstly, it's great to see you, my partner in pod. How are you?
Hiya, Kristy. Yeah, doing well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. It's great to see you online here tonight. The reason we're here today recording this episode is because it's been a big couple of weeks. Well, 8 months to be honest. Rach, you shared some very personal health news recently. So if you're up for it, we'd love to hear from you if that's okay.
Absolutely. And it's not one I expected to be talking about. Really big couple of weeks. And I've shared a bit of personal news on social media and, getting reactions that I never expected, which is amazing. I certainly didn't have cancer on my bingo card at all, actually. And it was only recently that I decided that I wanted to talk about it. So I was diagnosed back in last August, and it has just been a whirlwind of treatment ever since. From my diagnosis in August to loads of different tests, being pulled this way and that, MRIs, CTs, blood tests, the works, and then the treatment itself, 6 months of chemotherapy. And now I'm kind of the other side of that treatment. I'm still in active treatment, but I'm post chemo, post surgery. And so why did I decide now? Well, two reasons really. I think throughout the whole journey, I've been on some really amazing forums with other women going through this, and it hit me that people really want to talk about this and to share stories, for that feeling of safety and camaraderie, and we all need that mutual support in the cancer community. I'm a member of some incredible forums, and like I said, Facebook groups. And already from my social media posts that I've done, I've had loads of people reach out to me, thanking me for being so honest. And number two, I think, to be honest with you, during chemotherapy, it would have been impossible. I was absolutely wiped out, physically, emotionally, very vulnerable, and just busy, surviving. It was like a bit like being underwater. My brain was racing ahead, but my body was in a very different place. It didn't feel safe for me to go public, although we carried on meeting and we did a few podcasts, didn't we? But I had to really prepare for those moments, and a lot of it is thanks to you that I was able to pull through those, because all my energy literally went into trying to pull through it.
Wow, Rach, that's huge and really personal. So glad that you feel ready now to share it with us. But yeah, it's such a brutal thing to go through. You've been fighting triple negative breast cancer, having treatment, lying low and recovering, and you're on the mend, getting your strength back and you're healing. How does it feel to be back behind the mic? And most importantly, how are you doing now?
Oh, honestly, it's one of those things that is making me feel alive. Uh, so much of this journey is unexpected, and nothing can prepare you for how life changes. The feeling of losing vitality, the drive that I once had, the energy that I took for granted, losing my purpose, it was all very devastating. So to be here with you doing what I used to take for granted, like working, speaking, sitting behind a desk, laughing, although that's never stopped, sharing, concentrating, chemo brain is real. It's nothing short of liberating. I feel as though I've been hibernating for 8 months and I've just emerged into the world, like a really grumpy bear. I've got lots to do. I'm desperate to be me again. But these things take time and I've got to take it slow. And so I think before we get going, now might be just a good place to spend a minute or two kind of honouring that process of cancer treatment, because people going through it, or loved ones supporting people going through it, often feel invisible because no one understands how it feels.
Mm.
And so I thought it was quite important to be honest about it. And that's why a lot of my social media posts recently have been so honest.
Yep.
Um, it's not something I ever thought about, chemotherapy. Nobody tells you what it's going to be like, but it is utterly transformative. That's how I would describe it. The closest, most accurate metaphor I think I've come up with as a writer is war.
Yeah.
The systemic destruction of your whole body obviously attacks the good cells as well as the ones that you're trying to get rid of. The intense conflict resulting in a prolonged and violent change, isn't often discussed. I think we put brave faces on, and when we get asked, which we always do, how are you? We always sort of say, "Oh, I'm fine." We're all guilty of that, aren't we? It's not
Yeah.
it's not just going through this. You hear a lot on social media about warriors winning, bravery, courage, but without actually picking apart what is behind those words. Um, you don't have any control over what's happening to you. It's not a choice. The slow hemorrhaging of energy, the awareness of being systemically poisoned, the bone weary fatigue, the groundhog days of treatment, the crushing of biological systems you never knew were there and you took for granted, like eating, rest, sleep, simple mechanics, seeing them slip away. I know it sounds dramatic, and I'm a writer, so I'm allowed to use some artistic license here, but I never thought I'd become, a bloody living metaphor for pain. Everything about it is painful. It almost feels self-indulgent to talk like this because I'm not used to talking like this. Um, because I'm used to looking after myself. I'm used to eating the food I want to eat. I'm used to making decisions about my body. I'm used to, keep looking after it in the form of exercise,
Yep.
going to bed fatigued because I've used my body and I'm tired, going to bed proud of my body because, I've maybe bust a PB running or whatever. And all that is, all of those choices are taken away from you. But it is universally acknowledged now that after treatment stops, even though you've gone through all of that and you've faced all that, it kept you busy. So
Yeah.
one of the most challenging times is now because everybody thinks, oh, brilliant, you're better. I had my surgery about 6 weeks ago now, and I am incredibly lucky that the chemotherapy killed a 3.5 centimetre tumour, and there's no evidence of cancer in my nodes under my arm either. So, that's incredible. I'm incredibly grateful. But I think you're left with this deep shock from this assault, and it's going to take a long time to process that.
Rach, the way that you describe that, it sounds relentless and really consuming. Even the use of the word hemorrhaging. When you were going through it, did you feel like you had any sense of control, or was it more something that felt completely out of your hands?
Yeah, I think that was the hardest thing for me. I am a bit of a control freak. I plan out my days, and I've raised two kids. They're now 21 and 19 now. Everything's always been kind of on my terms, as much as life can be. Career choices and things like that. Like I say, the choice over your own body, what you do with your own body, it's a very personal human right, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
To be in charge of one's own body. And I hope, I don't offend anybody by saying this, but especially as a woman, we, it's very private having that control over our bodies because we are vulnerable, more vulnerable physically than men. So it's a very deep, private part of ourselves. And no, I had absolutely no control over anything. My hair, my weight, my food, my appetite, my bodily functions. I mean, let's get real here. No, No, I had to trust the process. It was like a bit like getting on an aeroplane. I don't like flying. I don't think many people do.
Yeah.
But, you have to trust that the guy sat in the seat or the lady sat in the seat, they know what they're doing and they haven't had a few bevies, because that's what it's like. And I had to completely trust my team, the people putting that poison in me.
Yeah.
I had to just believe that it would work in the end. But yeah, that was the scariest thing, I think, not being in control.
Yeah. It's really hard to even like fathom, like not having any control over what's happening.
We just take it for granted, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
Having choice, humans having choice on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. The
You know,
simplest
we
things.
yeah, we choose what time to get up. We choose, where to sleep. We choose what to eat, and that sort of, we choose how to behave. Yeah, so it's a very, very fundamental sort of human need, isn't it?
That's exactly right, Rach. You mentioned that as a history teacher, mustard gas was just part of a distant World War One curriculum. Then suddenly it was the symphony of drugs saving your life. 16 rounds of chemo to kill a 3 centimetre tumour, as you just spoke to us about. When you realised the very thing that you taught was the thing keeping you here, what went through your mind?
It was one of those real aha moments, and the thing that I love most about my job as a crime author, not too dissimilar to being a history teacher because of all the research. And one of those sideline stories from history that it isn't in the textbooks, but it gives such an important perspective on things. And I taught about World War One for years, and I never knew that fact that chemotherapy was developed from mustard gas. Um, Apparently, people observed that chemical warfare attacked blood cells, and made people's, compromised people's immune system. It wasn't until World War II when it was developed as a treatment for lymphoma and leukemia. But that aha moment was way back in the First World War. And the first IV chemo was actually called mustine.
Wow.
My brain went into full research fever pitch levels when I found out that one of my drugs, paclitaxel, is from a yew tree on the Pacific coast. Little details like that kept me sane. I wanted to know what was being injected into me, and I wanted to understand the poison. Um, since the 1970s, there's been incredible advances, and now immunotherapy is standard care. That blows my mind too. One of my
Yeah.
drugs is called the Red Devil because it's a powerful antibiotic that's pink. It comes from a bacteria found in Italian soil, which is red.
Amazing.
It's called the devil. I know it's called the devil because of its horrendous side effects.
Okay.
It's got a really bad reputation. Um, Another of my chemo drugs, carboplatin, is platinum based, and kills cancer DNA. So I imagined all these warriors, floating around my body, killing the baddies.
with the tri pitchfork, the devil. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Does everybody have the red devil, or different
It's
cancer treatments have different drugs?
Yeah, it's a classic breast cancer treatment, the
Is
Red
it?
Devil.
Okay.
Unfortunately, three main treatments really for breast cancer: the platinum drugs, and then your Taxol drugs, the one from the tree, and then your Red Devil, your DNA disruptors. And sadly, all three of them make you lose your hair. There are lots of cancer treatments out there where you don't lose your hair, but
Yeah.
sadly, breast cancer is a perfect storm,
Yeah.
and you're guaranteed to lose it. Really, I mean, they put a comedy picture of me on social media with the cold cap on,
Yeah.
and basically they put it on you and it freezes your scalp, and so the chemotherapy doesn't reach your hair follicles on your head, and so the idea is that you can keep your hair for longer. And I kept mine up until gone Christmas. So, the first sort of 4 or 5 months of treatment. So I was
Yep.
really, really lucky. The cold cap worked. I just felt more like me for a bit longer.
Yep.
Um, but then I had my husband and my daughter gave me the buzz cut, and now if you're on YouTube, you'll be admiring my beautiful wig from a local company in Ware near us in Hertfordshire. So I love it. They've done a great job, and I think, hats off to all women going through this, and some men actually get breast cancer too.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do, because obviously they have memory tissue. There are lots of women out there who rock the bald and embrace the bandana, and
Yep.
that is wonderful. It's all about personal choice, and I went with the wig choice. It just makes me feel a little bit more like me when I go out. But it is growing back. So that's the good news underneath.
What I love about you, Rach, is you're an author, you're a teacher, digging into the details, and only you could turn chemo into a full history and science deep dive. But seriously, did that curiosity help you mentally get through it, or did it actually make it feel even more real?
Yeah, with me, I think it's know your enemy, So,
Right.
so instead of sort of like denying the facts, or just not having that noise. I think, obviously we fall into two camps. I think there's, a lot of people who don't want to know, and
Yeah.
absolutely rightly so, who would, and that enables them to not have as much noise. And then there's the people, like me, and we're also, equally big camp, which is, no, I need to know what I'm dealing with here. And so information has always been my friend, with teaching history, or
Yeah.
I was a personal trainer for a long time as well. So, so knowledge is a really big, important part of that. And so not only was it fascinating finding out all of these things, it calmed me as well, because I think
Okay.
with me, the more I knew my enemy,
Yeah.
the more I could get my head round it, the more I could go, okay, I understand what's going on now. So this week, this is going on, and next week is another week. And so that was the way I kind of dealt with it.
That totally makes sense. The knowledge is so powerful, isn't it, Rach?
I think so. It is for me. I find it comforting in a way, even though it's not nice. Knowing a bit more about it made me able to ask specific questions as well when I saw the oncologist. So, or the surgeon, I would say, oh, and what about this? And then I would get the answer that I needed, just to calm my nervous system down.
Yeah.
That helped.
So you actually are a bit of a chemo expert. When you come for your meetings with your oncologist, a big list of questions like, oh my God, here she comes, Rachel Lynch with all the bloody questions.
So on one of my first meetings with the surgeon, he told me I was triple negative, and we were going to talk about this later, but let's just describe this here. So basically, there's a couple of breast cancers that we know about, and a lot of them haven't been discovered yet, because a lot of them are mutations that we don't really understand. But so the hormonal ones are, you are either progesterone positive or estrogen positive. That's P positive or E positive.
Okay.
And then there's HER2 positive, which famously Kylie had. She really sort of got the word out there about Herceptin. So HER2 positive is a growth hormone. And basically it's about what makes the cancer grow. So if the HER2 is what's sticking to the cancer and making it thrive,
Yep.
then you want to switch off the HER2, which is what Herceptin does. If it's the hormones, progesterone and estrogen, that's sticking to the cancer and making it grow, if that's what it's feeding on, you want to switch those off. So that's where tamoxifen comes in, and all the hormone treatments. Sadly, if you haven't got any of those three, then there's not a lot they can do apart from hit it with horrible chemotherapy. And that's called triple negative, because you haven't got any of the three receptors.
Okay.
And so yeah, he sat there. I'd already Googled this, and the surgeon, when I went in for my diagnosis, the surgeon said, yeah, it's invasive ductal carcinoma. And I said, what type? And he said, oh, it's progesterone negative, estrogen negative, HER2 negative. And I just went, triple negative then. And he looked at me and went, oh, you're one of those. Yes, I am, and I've got another 5,000 questions as well, if you don't mind. How long have you got?
Get comfy.
Get comfy, buckle up, mate.
Oh, I love that, Rach. Can I ask, how did the world of D.O. Kelly Porter help you make sense of the chaos of cancer? And did you ever find yourself thinking, what would Kelly do?
Yeah, it's one of the it's funny because it's when I realised how much I channel my Kelly and absolutely. I mean, I had really dark days and I still do, but I believe it's our baseline resilience, that carries us through any trauma. And chemotherapy and the experience of cancer is a prolonged and serious trauma.
Mm.
Um, there are lots of traumas, throughout throughout our lives, and this is another one. It's another one that adds to the list. That's how I see it, and so I'm getting through it like I get through everything. And me and Kelly are very, very similar. I didn't really acknowledge this until recently, probably. I think obviously, you write what you know, and I've created this woman, and so I kind it's made me understand her a little bit better. So she evaluates the situation. Shit, I have cancer. Weighing up my options. Shit, I need 24 weeks of chemo. 24 weeks? Can't you just cut the sucker out? Um, I readied myself. Shit, everything's about to change, but shit, I can do this. And then survived as best as I could. Oh shit, those baddies are worse than I thought. And emerged out the other side, but only by accepting help from those who love me and those around me, which she always has to do as well. Yes, she's absolutely amazing and she's kick-ass and she's tenacious and she's, a right badass, but her team is really important too. Her home life's really important. Ted's really important to her. And obviously now Lizzie and Johnny's really important to her, even though their relationship has been up and down, and currently it's down and maybe it goes up. And then her team at Eden House. So she's tenacious, resilient, focused, and steely, but she's a human, and she relies on that. And that is exactly what I did. Surrendering my control was really hard, but accepting help doesn't come naturally to me. But I wouldn't have survived without friends, family, colleagues like you, Kristy Horne. Your gifts and your surprises from the Southern Hemisphere were absolutely priceless, and glimmers to me. We've talked about glimmers before, and they were when that thing lands on the out in the post, and I open it, and it was a placemat or a snow scene or just a card. These are the things that matter, and I think that is what I've learned is what really matters in life.
Yeah. And we love looking for the glimmers, don't we, Rach? Because they're everywhere, but only if you're looking.
Yeah.
You recently shared a photo of you and the brilliant Michael Wood at Harrogate last year versus now. This is a visual of how much your world turned upside down. But recently you did something so special, dedicating Cruel Truth, Kelly 13, to the nurses at Elstree Cancer Centre. Can you tell us a bit about those nurses and that dedication? The inside cover, what you've written is just absolutely beautiful.
Oh yeah, first Harrogate. I mean, that last year when I first met Michael in the flesh, actually for the first time. Michael's a fantastic crime writer, and we're hoping to get him on the pod as a guest. He's massively up for it, by the way. That's the last time I felt like me in public. That's why that's why I chose that picture, because it's very, very me, just sort of laughing and in company. And I made some really special friends there, and those people have kept me laughing and smiling all the way through. There's not a lot of people I shared my news with, but we have a WhatsApp group with about 7 of us from Harrogate, sort of writing buddies, and I shared it with them. And I think I shared a before and after, because one of the biggest things I've struggled with is my identity. I love exercise, I love food, I love socializing, I love traveling, I love sunshine, I love laughter. And chemotherapy took most of that away. I'm still navigating what's replacing it, to be honest. And when I say taken away, like I can't sit in the sun, because one of the effects of my good old Pacific yew tree is that it's thinned my skin, so I'll burn easily.
Yep.
food, I have to be really careful with food, because one of the lovely effects of chemotherapy is that, it really affects your whole digestive tract, and that's still healing. I know I'll do those things again, but, my world is forever changed. That's okay. I think of that lovely Japanese vase, that's been broken and put back together again. It's no longer the same, but it's more interesting and shows the scars. And they call it Kintsukuroi,
Okay.
meaning golden repair. And it's about showing off the object's history rather than hiding it. But on the nurses at Elstree, I mean, they were incredible. They are incredible. They're still looking after me. I'm still going back for immunotherapy. And I probably will have that until at least the end of the year.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't know how they do that job. I know it's horses for courses, and we're all different. But they're the best of us. They're truly good humans. They were always there to listen from one week to the next about all the ways that cancer destroys your life, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And I can't thank them enough. And so dedication in my next book was the absolute least, thing I could do. And a big box of Krispy Kreme donuts went down well too.
Yeah, it was a really beautiful photo that you shared online. And gosh, that's such a powerful way to look at it, Rach. The idea of the golden repair, it really stays with you, doesn't it? And how do you feel about that version of yourself now?
Yeah, I'd seen that on TV a few times over the years, and I loved the concept of it. And actually, I think that we are all those vases anyway. And I think cancer's just one more little break.
Mm,
Does that make sense? Because
yeah,
life's not fair, is it? And life's not easy, and we're always bashing ourselves against life and repairing. And so I think we're all those vases really, and mine's just taken a bit of a bigger hit over the last couple of months. But the vase is coming back together. So yeah, enriching is the way I'm looking at it.
yeah, it's a really beautiful summary. And what I really love about that is the big box of Krispy Kremes.
Who doesn't love a Krispy
I
Kreme?
know, yeah, they're so soft and delicious, and if you
Yeah.
can scoff down a couple, then take some Gaviscon for the heartburn.
Yeah. Do you know, it is a bit like being pregnant. So when I was pregnant, I had a bottle of Gaviscon in my bag, a bottle of Gaviscon in the car, a bottle of Gaviscon wherever I was going to be.
Serious?
Um, so I could chug it. Oh yeah, it's disgusting. Have this
It's like chalk,
really,
isn't it? It's awful.
oh, really terrible relationship with that stuff. And I thought that was over that part of my life. But yeah, I have had to chug a few Rennies and a bit of Gaviscon lately. But that's okay, because like you say, you can have a fish and chip supper, and then you can have a Gaviscon chaser. No
Yeah.
problem.
Oh, sausage rolls for me. They'll do it every time. I bloody love a sausage roll. For the next 4 hours, I'm burping sausage roll and burning in the back of the throat.
Worth it though.
Oh, totally. You've been really open with us about this, Rach, and you've described triple negative breast cancer as a bitch. Something incredibly tough, but something you're still choosing to face head on. For listeners going through their own dark chapters right now, what has this experience taught you about the idea of light that you often write about?
Yeah, such a good question. I think again it goes back to sort of digging deep and really finding out the way that you handle bad news, the way you handle trauma. And I've always given that darkness and light their own spaces in my novels, because I believe one doesn't exist without the other. Triple negative's scary stuff. It's because it hasn't got those targeted treatments, the recurrence rates are high, because there's nothing to continue treating it once they've performed the surgery. See, that's why I'll be on immunotherapy for a
Okay.
while. It basically gives my immune system a good slap and says, "How did you miss that? Can you just go and attack that, please? What have you been doing? Hello." So that's basically what immunotherapy does. So that is kind of the only thing that they can do for it at the
Okay.
moment. And the trials are ongoing. But yeah, it is scary stuff. And so faced with that, fear, I think it's really important. Well, I had to slow down and just take every day at a time. One day I might not be able to get out of bed, literally, and the next I might be able to manage a 30-minute walk. So acknowledging the darkness, because we can't ignore it, and you need to know what I needed to know what I was fighting for. So accepting the bad days made those good ones more special, and I still get them. Yesterday, for example, I was so tired, and I just accepted that I had to go to bed for 3 hours. And my treatment isn't over. I'm still healing. I still have radiotherapy to go. That starts in 2 weeks. I never expected the battle against this disease to be so long, and it may even be longer depending on what happens next. And that's why I wanted to single out triple negative, because there are specific groups on Facebook and Instagram that are for triple negative. It's a specific community,
Right.
that chance of recurrence, and all of the individual questions that refer to that are dealt with on those forums, and that's been fantastic for me.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, they've been absolutely brilliant, because those specific questions, you're talking to people who have lived with it for 15, 20 years, and so sharing that knowledge on those communities is fantastic. And I think one day at a time also means not worrying about the future anymore, because I can't control it.
Yeah.
It's been a real sort of leveler, and not worrying about the past either, because that's gone. And a lot of us don't. We worry about the past, and we worry about the future, and we forget today. So, I don't have any regrets. I don't feel guilty. There's too much rubbish online about how cancer's caused by certain foods and things like that. So I've been able to sort of slow down and shut out the noise. I don't listen to half of that. I've honestly had people say to me, "Oh, maybe you should eat organic blueberries, or drink turmeric tea." It's not helpful, and I think that that's something that needs addressing. Is trying to tell people with cancer how they might have prevented it. It's really not helpful, and
Right.
it makes us feel really, really guilty and bad about ourselves, and that's not fair, because it simply isn't true. My oncologist could not tell me why people get cancer, and that's a guy who's worked in it for 3 decades. But on social media, they prey on that fear, and it's all about marketing and making money and selling you something. Oh, do this, do that, and you'll never get cancer. And it's really cruel. I feel really strongly about that.
Yeah.
um, so I've had to learn how to ignore that, as well as slowing down. Just ignore all that noise out there too.
Like, as a friend, you don't even think about these types of things that you've just been sharing with us. Especially around the fear and the noise. So it's really powerful hearing you say this, and how you're choosing to focus on what you can control, and by taking things one day at a time. Yeah, it's really powerful, Rach. I'd never actually heard of a triple negative breast cancer before, so this has been really enlightening for me as well.
Yeah, neither had I. Thank God. And I think that that's a good thing. That we don't know these things, because we've got lives to live, haven't we? And I think the only reason I know about it is because I started doing all this digging into it,
Yeah.
wanted to understand it. I'm glad that you've never heard of it.
Rach, some of the messages from our Killer Storyteller listeners and your fans have been really incredible, coming in from all over the world. And I guess in the middle of everything you're still going through, you've got Cruel Truth, which landed this week, and The Gathering, which is coming out in June, which will be your 20th book launch, which is a huge milestone. Has this whole experience shifted how those moments feel for you now?
Oh yeah, so it's I think it's shifted how I feel about everything. And I think that the messages that I've been receiving about what I shared on social media about my personal life, and the people I've met, we don't want to be told stuff like take this supplement, or walk 50,000 steps. We simply want to share the pain and the joy, where the glimmers are. And on these, communities that I've joined, I've laughed and I've cried with other women going through it because, chemo made my farts smell worse than the dogs. But that's normal, apparently. The dog walked away.
The dog.
The dog walked away. I'm like, oh, puppy, sorry. Is it too bad? But it also humbled me because equally, my incredible body was fighting so hard for me against that poison, that they only give you it for a certain amount of rounds because otherwise it'd kill you.
Yeah.
It's that toxic. I've become quieter and slower. Things that used to matter to me don't matter so much now. So my launches this year are wonderful, and celebrating my 20th book is brilliant, and that I couldn't be prouder. But there'll be softer launches. My community online hasn't changed though, and I think I'm so glad to be part of the new publishing era online, and so that has continued uninterrupted. So I'll be posting as always, but my writing has become more about the story and less about the sales. I think my writing has gone more sort of inward, about letting it flow and not worrying so much.
Okay.
I write because it makes me happy, and I think going through this, finding anything that makes you feel happy, a glimmer, is a good thing day to day. And I haven't written every day at all
Yep.
by any stretch of the imagination. But when I have, it reminds me that in my books, I can win against a monster.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. That's what you're totally in control of.
Yes. And, I think essentially Kelly is my inner warrior. She's my hero. In my standalones, I don't always have one protagonist like Kelly who encapsulates the good. I play a lot more with them, but the only thing that wasn't affected by chemo was my mind, and although I did get a bit forgetful now and again, but in those stories are what's kept me alive. And through the whole journey in the foreseeable future, the whole pace of my life has changed. Now I think I crave slowness and stillness. I feel nostalgic for glimmers from my past when I was safe, like listening to awesome music. I've been listening to a lot of Marvin Gaye, The Doors, The Bee Gees, Barbara Streisand, Neil Diamond. It's that nostalgic for when life was simpler, when we were like teenagers or in our 20s, when we didn't really have many things to worry us. And I think
Yeah.
I've gone back to that place in a way. I think I'll ease myself gently into socialising with big groups. Don't know if I'm going to do Harrogate this year. It
Okay.
terrifies me at the moment because my confidence has taken a hit. So having books coming out is really good for that confidence. It's good for my healing. I've formed new habits. Don't rush around so much because I can't. I'm gentler with myself, grateful for what I can do, not resentful for what I can't. Also feel really lucky that my job has enabled me to express myself on the page and get my emotions out. So I kept a journal from the very first moment I was diagnosed. So I've filled 2 diaries so far, and I'm so glad I did that, Kristy. Do you journal?
I do. Yeah, I do. I've got all sorts of books for different stuff, but particularly when I travel, over my shoulder there's a whole bookshelf of journals, and I love buying journals.
Yeah,
I love, I think I sent you a beautiful Anna Blattman journal,
you did.
podcasting ones, yeah.
So my Anna Blackman journal is now my planning journal, and so I planned out Kelly 15 in it.
Did you? Oh, that's
Yesterday.
exciting.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
so
really excited
exciting.
about that
Yeah.
one. Yeah, so Kelly 14 will come out next February, so February 27,
Wow. Oh, really?
and it's called Cold Shadow.
Oh, shit.
And I'm just about to start Kelly 15. Yeah, which I'm
Cold
really
shadow.
excited about. Yeah, so journaling. I'm so lucky that I like that sort of thing, that hand eye brain contact on the page. That's been really comforting to
Yeah.
me. Um, and also, being able to get my feelings out. That
Yes.
that's that
Yeah.
that's that's been a great help.
Have you gone back and reread some of your journals from the early days when you were first diagnosed?
All the time. I do it all the time because
Yeah.
I'll feel something, especially during chemo. I'll feel something and I'll go, and it's really scary. I'm like, oh my God, what's happening to my body?
Yeah.
And then I'll flick back and I'll realize that I've been there before and this is how I dealt with it. So on a really practical level,
Wow.
it was, it was like a case study of all of my symptoms. And I found that really helped me. If I felt something unusual, oh no, I had that in week 3. It's fine. I'll just do that.
Oh, fantastic. But there's something so honest about the way you've embraced the slowing down and being gentler with yourself. I really love that, Rach, while still finding a way to keep writing through all of it. It's like your brain didn't slow down. Actually, I think it's turbocharged.
I've got so much catching up to do. Buckle up. Oh, and also I told my oncologist that this is another sweet little story. So basically, when I was talking to the oncologist for the first time, just before I started chemo, lovely guy, he basically said, "Oh, what do you do?" So I said, "Oh, I'm a writer." And he said, "Oh, what do you write?" And I said, "Oh, crime novels." And he went, "Oh." So he told all the nurses. And anyway, they wanted me to, share what I did. So I brought in a whole stack of books. And because this one nurse said, Laura, she said, "Oh, I love crime." So I said, "Okay, well, I'll bring in a few of my books then." So I took in a stack. And then suddenly other nurses started to come into my pod and they were like, "Oh, can I have one? Can I have one?" So I signed the whole Kelly series for
Did
each of
you?
the nurses and they're all sharing them.
Love that.
But I said to the oncologist that in my next book, I'm going to kill an oncologist. And he was like, fair dinkum.
Is he an Aussie?
No, that's just my little touch. Was it okay?
It was awesome. It was bloody beauty, mate. Oh, yeah, you'll have to give him a copy of The Rich because that's like one of the best books ever.
I was absolutely blown away. Actually, they're loving it. So each week I'd go in. One of them had asked me a different question about a plot. It couldn't have been him. What have you done? I'm like, can you just concentrate on my drugs, please?
I'll get Jaden in.
Oh my God. Yeah, they'd never concentrate if we took all the hotties in from the Kelly series.
Graham. Oh, wow. I just needed that big, deep breath, Rach. It's been a real honour to record this special personal episode with you. So thank you for allowing me to have this discussion because we'd ruminated over this for some time, hadn't we? So thank you for being so open and so honest in sharing this with us.
Oh, thank you, Kristy. So, and I think the timing's perfect.
Yeah.
And as a final note, I would like to say to all women listening, never think you're being paranoid if you find a lump. Check those boobies, and report anything unusual, no matter how insignificant you think it is. I could barely feel mine, and it was over 3 centimeters, but it was very deep near my chest wall.
Right.
Go to your mammogram appointments. Don't put them off. Support breast cancer now and cancer research. There are runs, walks, and all sorts of ways like Macmillan coffee mornings to support the ongoing work of developing ways to fight this horrible disease that, sadly is one of the biggest reasons behind female mortality in this country. And I think that's the same for Australia and the US as well. Developing those targeted therapies to kill tumours. So chemotherapy might one day be a thing of the past. And I'm also being looked after by Penny Brown UK, which is a wellness charity. And they believe that treating cancer is about the whole person, not just the disease, which is really, really important as well. There's one that you might have heard. I don't know if you do it in Australia, but here we do a breast cancer night run or walk in London, and it's basically a marathon, but you can walk it. So obviously it takes all night, and everybody wears bras. Even the blokes that lots of men do it as well, and they wear bras as well, and they decorate the bras with
Oh,
feathers.
right.
And
Oh, great.
yes, it's good for breast cancer. So sadly I won't be able to do that this year because I think it's May,
Okay.
and I won't be strong enough. And I'm a walk in 2 hours at the moment, but 26 miles takes about I think it takes about 8 hours. So, but my aim is to do that in May 2027 to raise money for breast cancer as well.
Fantastic. That's something really awesome to look forward to, Rach. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of this conversation on the Killer Storyteller podcast with Rachel Lynch. And thank you, Rach. It's been a really powerful and moving conversation. And to everyone listening, thank you for being part of it and for all of your support.
Thanks, Kristy, and thanks everyone for listening. And I'll be continuing to talk about this on social media because it touches so many people's lives. It's also crept into some of my new storylines too. Watch this space, and please get involved and share far and wide to increase awareness for people not just battling the disease, but navigating the treatment and what that does to us too, and those loved ones who are there to support us. Please ping over any questions you might have, and I'll answer them openly and honestly. Watch this space for further discussions and updates with us. For now, though, we're prepping for our next podcast episode on Kelly Porter, and we hope you'll join us then. Bye, Kristy.
All right. See you, Rach. Bye.